Hello, hello. Welcome to today's live stream. Today we have a different format. You will see many faces, not just my own here joining us today. We're going to be hosting a roundtable discussion on content marketing budgets. So we have a great group of folks here who are going to be answering some questions, sharing some lessons and some things around how to set and maintain and allocate content marketing dollars in the crazy world that we live in of modern SEO and AI and all that going on. Before we introduce today's guests, I want to just do a couple of my normal shout outs. First of all, if you're watching live today, please hit the like button on our video here. That will help other folks find us. Second of all, if you've not already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We host at least once a month. We have live workshops, Q&As, roundtable discussions, lots of great stuff here happening for content marketing people, SEO folks, whether you're in-house or agency. We've got just a lot of great, really smart people sharing insights and tips and strategies. So hit that subscribe button and join us there, or join us here, I should say. And number three, I just want to mention top of the funnel. So if you're not already a member of our free community, we have a free Slack community. It's called Top of the Funnel. And that's really where all of these live sessions and streams sort of originate. And then inside, there's all kinds of great discussions happening. There's work opportunities. There's networking. There are people looking for sources for articles, all kinds of really great stuff. So again, if you're in content marketing and SEO, you want to network with super smart people in this space and learn from them, join us there at Top of the Funnel, yesoptimist.com/tofu. And I have one more final thing before we get started, which is I need to shout out today's sponsor. Today's session is brought to you by Ahrefs. Ahrefs is, of course, an all-in-one platform for content marketers and SEO folks like us. They have all kinds of tools to help you conduct competitor analysis, keyword research, content planning, all kinds of great stuff. And they also now offer a free tool called Ahrefs Webmaster Tools. If you hit this link, bit.ly/hrefstofu, it also should be in the description down below. It's going to take you to Webmaster Tools. It's a free tool that you can use to audit your website, find issues holding back your SEO, and figure out how to fix them. So it's a really cool tool. Definitely recommend you check it out. If you've not already, pop on over and see how it goes. All right, that's my intro. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing today?
Hey, Tyler.
Thank you. Good. Cool. Well, just first of all, I just want to say thank you all to each of you once again for taking the time to join us today. I'm really excited to learn from you all about the world of budgeting and sort of thinking about content marketing budgets, which I think is something that I think we all deal with, but we probably don't talk about nearly as much as we should in terms of how should I be thinking about this? How do I allocate these finite resources? Before we dive in, let's just do quick intros. Allie, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, I'm Allie Orlando Wirt. Nice to see everybody. I currently work as our Senior Director of Content Strategy at AppFire. We're a company that develops apps that plug into other ecosystems like Atlassian, Salesforce, and Microsoft. And I manage a team of content specialists, and also kind of accidentally was in charge of managing the marketing budget this year while we had a gap on our team. Not something that I would like to do for the rest of my life, but budget is, I guess, a little near and dear to my heart at the moment. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. I'm excited. George, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm George Wynn. I know that last name might throw you off a little bit, but it's one syllable, like win as in win or lose. I like to make that point because you run into a lot of Vietnamese people, and like 60% of us have this last name. No, we're not related. I am the Director of SEO Editorial at Wix, which means I help to manage and run the Wix SEO Learning Hub. That's wix.com/SEO/learn. So if you go to that link, you can actually see what our budget goes to. And, this sector, content marketing, SEO, my mission, I see myself as primarily an educator. SEO is great. Content marketing is great. They serve amazing purposes. But my real passion is communication and educating people on these disciplines so that, you can pay for your kids' daycare, go from what was page 2 to page 1. That's really where my heart's at. That's pretty much everything you need to know about me.
That's awesome. What a noble noble pursuit there. Deb, last but not least.
Yes, sir. Hey guys, I'm Deb. I head marketing at Numero. It is an e-commerce sales tax software. If you know anything about e-commerce, it's booming, and we help you clean up your garbage, basically sales tax. Nobody wants to talk about it, so that's what I'm doing. And as the head of marketing, well, I have to allocate budgets and talk to my CEO about increasing it, which is the most important part. But yeah, like that's what I've been doing. SaaS marketing is my second love, first love being anime. So that's all you need to know about it.
I love that. I love that. And I think we've got a good mix here too. Obviously Wix being a much, a large company, AppFire, I would say is sort of somewhere in the middle, fairly large, and Numero being more of like in the startup stage. So I think we've got a pretty diverse range of experiences here. I'd love to just jump right into the first question. And Deb, maybe you can take this from your perspective. When you just mentioned sort of setting the marketing budget and talking to the CEO, when you're setting that budget, how are you thinking about, content marketing as a piece of the overall marketing budget?
Yeah. Before I get into that, just want to clarify, when I say content marketing, I don't mean blog posts, or I just don't mean blog posts, right? So
Sure.
Just to clarify that, having clarified that, I think next year our budget would be pretty extensive on the organic front. Like this year alone on the organic side, we got probably millions in pipeline from organic growth, and that combines in like your SEO, social media, B2B influencer marketing, which is sort of also part of content. Next year it's going to be about 30 to 40% of the entire marketing budget. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So 30 to 40%. And then we can talk here coming up about, sort of how you divide that up. Cause like you said, there's sort of several different pillars there. Yeah. Ali, what about you in terms of thinking about, as you were working on the marketing budget that you hope you never have to work on again, how did content sort of fit into the pie?
Yeah, because we are like a mid-sized company, we have all of those different functions within marketing. And so a lot of what content does is also absorbed in other areas. So our content specific budget is not a large piece of the overall marketing budget. We also have a pretty large in-house team of content specialists. And so our remaining budget does go to like agency support, research reports, things that we're outsourcing in terms of research, and some tools and things like that. But a lot of our other things that also touch content might end up in other budgets, like the demand generation budget or the creative budget, but they also touch content.
Okay. So that makes sense. So the budget is really sort of spread out across these multiple buckets. And then there's a little bit of like allocation specifically for other content or content specific projects, but for the most part, it's sort of spread out across the other functions.
Yeah.
Okay. And George, what about at Wix? How does that look?
Wix is a huge organization, and off the top of my head, we have 3 main publications: the Wix main blog, the Wix SEO Learning Hub, and the Wix Studio blog, our newest offering. So I only have insight specifically into the one that I run. Like to speak to the entire marketing budget would just be probably a very large figure. But kind of similar to Ali, we see our budget like, yeah, there's definitely what I am allotted for content marketing in this traditional blog post type, which is very much my realm. I'm an editor. I work with words. But then there's also like those other things that kind of dip into other places. Like we do a lot of sponsorships. Some of those involve content in other places. We have booths at conferences. And so it's kind of hard to pick out. But I can't speak to exact numbers or proportions, but I would say that the things that we've accomplished in terms of turning the Wix reputation around within the realm of SEO, some of you might be more familiar with our antiquated perception of Wix being not the best choice, right? And whether it's the best choice now is totally up for you to decide, but it's definitely not the worst. And that took a significant amount of budget. We had to invest not just in the content that we were putting out to show our expertise, but in the people, right? And when we're talking about content marketing budgets, a lot of it is going towards your authors, your creators, and those are people, right? And those are kind of your brand ambassadors if you do it well. So there's a lot of budget that goes out for that purpose, and that's pretty much the most general way I can put it.
For sure. Well, I actually want to dive into that if we can, George. So my next question was going to be about how your the investment in content has maybe evolved over the last few years. And so it sounds like, Wix at some point made like a very specific decision to invest more heavily in content to try to sort of change some of these perceptions. Is that, can you tell us about how that unfolded?
I think that content is, I mean, I'm sure Deb, Ali, you see content as non-negotiable for what you're trying to achieve, right? And in that regard, the decision is easy. It's like, okay, if you want to change things, and this is the SEO industry, then of course you're going to have to go with that. So yeah, that decision was put in place. However, there was some lag between the decision from the higher ups and actually getting someone to do these things correctly. A lot of time went by. And early last year, I was hired to step in, try to get this thing off the ground, and I did. And one of the first things I said was, every contributor needs to be paid. They need to be paid well. So all my contributors know how much they get paid, and they all get paid the exact same amount. So we try to pay everyone, and that helps keep people happy, but it also, it adds a lot more to the entire package. When you're thinking about what you're getting out of your content marketing, and it really starts with who's creating it, you need to show your investment in them. So I spend a lot of time. We only publish 6 to 8 articles per month, and it all goes through me. So whatever we need that we're not able to pay to get is something that I have to do personally. And in that sense, we are able to partner more deeply, create brand ambassadors. Yeah, we're paying for words and content, but when I do this, I have a general, I don't like to talk about word counts because who does, right? It feels irrelevant. But a lot of people want to know, what kind of range should I be writing for? And I'll give them a range. But after seeing how hard I work on something with them as their editor, I've had content come in triple that length. So I feel like, I wish I could just pay you more, right? I really feel like decision makers aren't going to want to hear that, right?
Yeah.
As a practitioner, we can see the benefits just in the perception of Wix. But it's a hard pill to swallow if you don't have experience doing it and you don't know the right people. And I'm going to say that you just can't go out there with money, right? Everyone is hand selected. This is a process. Money is what greases the wheels. It isn't what creates the campaign or your success, right? You have to do it for the right reasons. I know it feels kind of heady, and I'm this dude with this long hair and a headband, but that's exactly what I do. And people seem thrilled to join in.
That's awesome. Yeah. I definitely want to unpack that because I think, that's of course the other side of it is, the budget and the investment is only half of the equation, right? It's also ultimately about the results. And so I definitely want to make sure that we dive into that in a little bit here. Deb, what about you? How has the investment at Numero, how has the budget or the investment in content changed over the last few years?
Well, Numero is pretty new, so it's like 1 year old, but just in this last 6 months, I joined 6 months back, and I took over marketing then. Just in the last 6 months, I would say the investment started alongside on the social media front. We did a lot of B2B influencers where we also had to create content, or they would send it to us and we would write it, something like that. And now we're moving towards the SEO front. And simultaneously also investing in videos, because I think in the next 2 years, video is going to be the de facto channel for literally everything you search for, right? Whether and it's good for folks like us who love video, who love to actually watch video and understand from it rather than read like a 5,000 word blog post. So that's where we are going with it. Like it's not changing. I would say it's more like evolving to the current market scenarios, like with Google's SGE and like half of Google's first page is filled with ads and SGE, then you don't have like a first number 1 ranking. You have like number 7th ranking, which is the number 1 now. And that's, gonna you know what, like, please don't get angry at me, but that's not number 1, that's number 7. So unfortunately, we are moving towards a direction where SEO is going to be like not.
Yeah. And so I guess as those changes have happened, it sounds like maybe the budget has been like sort of reallocated more so than necessarily expanded. Is that right? Or how have you discussed that internally?
So it has been reallocated. Like we are not giving up on SEO because we do have a lot of search terms. Our industry is like prime for SEO. Like we have thousands of keywords that we can rank for. It's not too big of niche, right? But the players are like have created thousands of keywords, and we are definitely investing in that. But yeah, like it'll be divided. So if I have like, let's say $10,000, just giving a random number, it's not 10,000, but if I just have 10,000, maybe like 30% would be invested in SEO, 30% would be invested in maybe 40% would be invested in video, and the rest of it would be like how George said, sponsorships and other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And Ali, what about you? As you wrapped up the marketing budget for 2024, how have things evolved or shifted versus previous years?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really fortunate to be at a company that's definitely all in on content and a CMO who really buys into content marketing. So starting last fall, right before I was hired, definitely one of the big bets for this year was content. So again, for us, that looked like a lot of in-house hires, actually, because we did grow through acquisition. And so we had writers who were able to join our team through acquisition. So we have a nice bigger in-house team than I've worked with before, but also some agency and freelancer support as well. So it's been less of a budget shift, but I mean, it is a budget impact in terms of people and headcount. So definitely in terms of our overall marketing spread, content gets a lot of investment, which is great.
That's awesome. I want to touch on something, and Deb, you mentioned this a little bit. You mentioned Google SGE, right? And so obviously AI is a hot topic in many facets of content marketing right now. How has AI impacted thinking about allocating money for content? Like, is it something where you're thinking, we should be spending less on content because AI exists, or we need to be spending more to get ahead of all the AI content that's out there? Ali, is that something that you all discussed internally?
I saw George come off mute, so I think
you should first. Yeah, go ahead, George.
I was just going to make a snarky comment about how you managed to get a whole 17 minutes into this thing without saying AI until this point. So thank you for lending the floor to me, Ali. But yeah, the mic is yours.
Yeah, AI is the topic, right? I just came back from Content Marketing World 2 weeks ago, and I was really, I was almost tired of hearing about AI by the end, but understand it's what everybody wants to talk about right now. We are hopefully investing some budget next year in experimenting with AI tools, because I don't want us to be behind on it. And I think there are opportunities to automate low strategy tasks, to use it as an additional tool for research and planning, to feed some of your own content into it and have it help you repurpose it and get like a head start on some of those, again, like low strategy writing tasks. I would never use AI for drafting original, interesting content that's going to differentiate the company and surprise and delight people. I don't think it's effective at trying to trick Google by flooding the internet with AI generated content, but there are absolutely companies that are going to use it that way. In my perspective, that's all the more need for us to have human intervention in creating content that actually is going to surprise and delight people and differentiate the company. But something we're definitely keeping an eye on.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I want to hear what the others have to say, though. That's just my 2 cents.
I definitely echo that. Like I kind of sort of banned AI content at Numero. Like you cannot use AI for long form content. Feel free to use it for web pages and social media posts, because Google is, just understand this very well. Google is very, very, very good at detecting AI content. Like they're much better at all the freaking tools that you have. Like, I'm not going to mention them by name because they might come after me, but they don't work. Just FYI, if you do a lot of testing, which I did, they don't work as well. And Google can detect AI content, and with the like the number of updates that Google push out, which I, again, track very diligently, it's not going to be easy for you. Like even you're writing SEO content. If you're writing SEO content, specific content, you want them to rank. With Google's updates, it's going to be near impossible to rank, especially if you're writing with AI. So long form content, absolutely, Ali. Never ever with AI, but definitely, would love to automate, and we are doing that, like a bunch of social media posts, just especially content that needs to go out on social media, that's valuable for our social folks. We are definitely using the AI to repurpose that. Yeah.
I want to contextualize by saying something really obvious. I've gotten really far in my career by saying very obvious things. What Deb and Ali are saying, I absolutely agree with, but you also have to take into account like the nuances of your own business. We all operate in a situation in which we can't imagine anyone else just picking up, plopping down, and replacing us because of the workflows we develop, because of how the business works, things like that. If you are in a business with absolutely zero competition, go ahead and see how AI works out for you. Go ham on it, right? Because you won't have that competition. So for people who are just less experienced with AI or don't know about that, like there is a use case. Do I use it for the Wix SEO Learning Hub? No. And let me tell you a really good reason why, and then we'll talk about like how that might shift budget, okay? My audience, I view it as Wix is a company that helps people build websites. We're a platform that does that. So our audience goes from mom and pop or like self-creator, your 12-year-old nephew that just really wants like a blog about BTS or whatever. We do that. We're well known for that. All the way up to enterprise. We have agency partners, right? So we run the gamut here. The needs of my audience for the Wix SEO Learning Hub are people who literally just want to be like, hey, how do I get a Google business profile? That's not that hard, but someone needs to teach them. And these people aren't maybe digital native, right? And then there's people who are looking at the opposite end. Let's stay with local SEO. What do I do? Multi-location tactics here. How do I build a framework in which I can communicate with each of my franchise owners so that what they're saying in Memphis matches up with what I'm doing in San Francisco? The needs here are so diverse. How can you, just to explain it to you has taken minutes from me, but how can AI address those people within your content when you're having trouble, right? Just from that nuanced perspective, what you're trying to accomplish here, if you're speaking to everybody, maybe you're speaking to nobody, right? So what does that mean? That means that our budgets, they have to stay with the people creating the content. If you're using AI in a low competition space, I super believe this is like the hill I will die on, that your editor has to be your subject matter expert, the person, your content strategist, whoever is in charge of your blog. All the EEAT that you need has to come from now that one person. So you better be spending money on that person, on people like me, right? On Deb, Ali, Tyler, right? Because if you're trying to replace a stable of writers that have engineering degrees with one person who's a burnt out engineer, because guess what? You're going to make more money engineering than you are writing about engineering. You're going to make more money doing SEO than writing about doing SEO. But you need to make that shift for this person to make it worthwhile, because you are not only asking them to create this content and put the authority in there, but to do the research that would have been done by maybe half a dozen, or more writers. So that is that's what you're probably already doing if you're not using AI. But if you're going to start using AI, then you have to move your money elsewhere. It's not going to be as simple as like, okay, yeah, we're going to keep this guy at 70 grand, and then we're going to cut this 100,000 budget for our writers, and then we won't see any traffic. It'll be greater efficiency. We'll use that. No. You are deluding yourself. That's not how this is going to work.
That's not going to work. Yeah. Never.
Yeah. We've seen the same thing, especially in like sort of the early days with ChatGPT, and everybody thought, it was going to replace writers and all that stuff. And we had clients that were, putting pressure on us because they were getting pressure from, their CMO or whomever. And that was the same thing that we concluded was like, yeah, hey, look, we could shave some time off the writing work, but that money is just that time. That money is just going to have to get reallocated to more editing or, other parts of the process. And at the end of the day, it's really not, you're not saving anything.
You're saving, to Deb's point, social media posts, meta descriptions, maybe title tags, right? Like the stuff that you leave towards the end of the day anyway. Yeah.
The boring stuff that you don't want to do.
Like that you wish that you had a junior for, right?
Yeah.
That's what AI can do for you.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting perspective though, because we're in like a really niche industry. We have some pretty broad audiences too, but like our content gets very technical because we're talking about how to use apps inside of other products. So we're talking about product a lot. Our product marketers are really heavily involved in our content briefing and content reviewing more than previous places that I've worked because everything is so tangential to product. So like ChatGPT can't do that, but there are topics we're going after in some cases that are like a little more simple and high level and basic because they're part of our overall topic strategy and they're areas we want to show up in. But I could see maybe a use case for generating the basic outline or running a draft through ChatGPT to get it's not a topic that requires a lot of in-depth technical understanding. And maybe again, I wouldn't just write a post with AI and then push it out to the world like George said. Like we have a senior editor like who sees absolutely everything, and we're not going to just take something out of AI and push it out. But I could see a use case for it.
It's going to take you time too. Like even if you're heavily using it in your own human-led processes, like if you start an article about like I don't know what is let's say what is the process for CNC milling, right? Something very obscure. You might start with a definition. What is this? That might be provided by ChatGPT. You could give a prompt, say, define this for an audience that has low expertise, and that's a good way to use it, right? But to go further, it's going to give you something that it'll give everyone else. All your competitors that are using it will have
same thing
access to that algorithm.
Yeah.
It'll be based off the same pool of data. So, are you expecting originality because you're not paying for it?
Love that
Plus,
point. Love that point.
Yep. You'd also have to consider the plagiarism side of it. So like if everyone's basically just copy pasting from ChatGPT, then a good chunk of your article is plagiarized. Well, you're effectively plagiarizing each other without knowing that you're plagiarizing. And Google won't like that. Google will be like, okay, who should I rank? And then it comes to authority. Like, say, okay, this is Wix. They have 95 DR. They have like amazing backlink. So we should just rank them because they're probably right. Google doesn't know, right? And then I have my Deb's SEO blog, which is like 2 DR, and I wrote the same thing. It'll be on the 10th page, right? So it's like, yeah, you kind of have to. It's a trade-off, right? If you do this, you can't do that. Also, the editors I've worked with, they really, really hate if you give them ChatGPT content because they basically have to edit out everything, right? They're like, oh, this is so bad. This is like the time I wrote my school essay. ChatGPT writes like that.
I will say that there are colleagues that do not work on the Wix SEO Learning Hub that have experimented with ChatGPT more heavily to see how we can scale. And the feedback was simply editorial process is either the same or actually less efficient. However, there's zero turnaround time for the content. And so that was the decision. Like, yeah, like what do you do there?
Trade-offs. Yeah, exactly.
Trade-offs for sure. Yeah. Okay, so I want to take a little bit of a step back away from AI specifically. Good news for everyone. We've got a sample size of 3, but 3 out of 3 folks are not replacing all their writers with AI, so that's good. But within that, I am curious, like as you think about your content marketing budget, like what are sort of the major buckets of and maybe like the rough proportions if you're able to share, people, tech, tools, like how do you sort of divvy up the money that's being spent there? And maybe George, you can start there because I know you sort of mentioned this earlier.
So there's the main things that we always have going are written content. The only person that doesn't get paid for written content are our own internal employees. I mean, yeah, that's just how it goes, right? So there's that. That's just always ongoing. So whatever amount that I pay times 6 to 8 per month, times 12 annually. Then there's podcast production. I think the podcast guests just send in their like short blurb and we don't pay them for that. It's more of an exposure play. It's pretty common. Like I'm not being paid for this appearance, right? This is part of the community and pushing knowledge forward. And also doesn't take that much preparation on my part, right? So in that regard, we pay a studio to develop that podcast, get it out there. And then we also have webinars, which are done internally, our own teams. And then we have an upcoming SEO certification course, which has been a long time in the making. And this is our big video offering that's coming up. We do smaller videos specifically for products, specifically for like the super, how do you even start SEO questions, right? Like what is local SEO? Like we have that, but for real knowledge is what we're trying to develop here. Like something about library that was quoted in like the hundreds of thousands for what we were trying to do. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm not managing that part, but yeah, this is, it's sort of the level when you look across the aisle and your competitor is Shopify, right? You have to take that seriously, right? When you're constantly getting compared with WordPress, right? Or trying to distance yourself from other WYSIWYG editors like Squarespace, it is a big money game because all those players have that money too, and so you need to rise to that level. And hopefully through our team, we can show that we speak the language of SEOs, right? So the budget, you got to look at what your competitors are doing, because if you want to compete at that level, like you can do it smart, you can do it viral, but can you do it sustainable? And at some point, those tactics, you need to mature and you need to do what everybody else wants, the main businesses, right? What your customers are looking for. And so I feel like sometimes if you want to play that way, then you need to play the same way everyone else does. And that takes a lot of money.
For sure. Yeah, I hear that. Ali, what about at AppFire? What are sort of the largest buckets? And again, I know you sort of mentioned this in the previous responses, but when you think about where you're allocating money within content.
Oh man, I just pulled up my spreadsheet and I did a quick little calculation to see what our percentages are. So I won't share the actual percentages because I don't know if I'm supposed to do that. But majority is towards writers. So again, we have a lot of in-house writers, and we also supplement with freelance writers with agency support on both strategy and writing. That's the majority of our, more than half of our content budget. And then the next biggest bucket is towards reports and research that we think are going to help us build topical authority. So working with a research firm to do some surveys and put out original reports, and also looking to do more with analyst reports next year. So that's the next biggest bucket. And then some smaller buckets, but keeping the money there for development for the team, staff development. Some of that also falls outside the content budget, but we have some extra padding in there for content. And then tools is the smallest percentage. But again, we take advantage of tools that fall under maybe the web team's budget or the creative team's budget. But we do have specific tools that our content team has asked for and uses that we have some small budget for.
Nice. Okay. And Deb, what about at Numero?
Yeah, same as AppFire. People would be about 50% of it. But we do it a little bit differently. We mostly prefer in-house folks because our stuff is super technical, right? And when I say technical, I mean you cannot go wrong. Like if you go wrong, you can get sued. Like for instance, if I tell you the wrong sales tax for New York, we can get sued for writing that content on our blog. And so in-house is 100% more preferable because we can train them that way. We have the right resources. They have access to our tax filing experts. So yeah, in-house would definitely be like we already have one writer. We are probably going to have a couple more. The next set would be, again, on people, but that would be on the video front, right? So like I said, we're going really ham on video from Q1, and we're probably going to invest in people creating videos for us on editing side, production side, all of that stuff, even distribution for that matter. Yeah. So
is that something that you're planning to outsource, or are you hiring that in-house?
Both, right? Yeah, both. So we want multiple creators on like repping Numero, and like for instance, if you see HubSpot or if you see Veed or if you see vidIQ, they're the OGs of video. They're like the SaaS companies, if you will. They do really good video content, and they have multiple creators. And there's a reason for that, because also the other thing is they choose buckets, right? So this bucket, you assign this person. So yeah, like that's what I'm going for. Yep, people would be most of it. And then I would say tools and like probably some freelancers to support our in-house writers with editing and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You don't the EEAT here, like for people who need authority on their websites, people who work in finance, compliance industries, all those your money or your life industries, like expect to spend more. You will need to spend more just to remain compliant. Like
Exactly.
you could have content, right? But if a lawyer needs to review it, you will spend more, right? But on the other side, if you're just selling like sneakers resale, that can be all you.
Exactly. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, think about your industry. Like, don't get scared by like, I'm talking about, 6-figure budgets for this thing. If you're not competing against Wix, like, don't worry about that. If you're doing your own thing, it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
And you have to find out for yourself.
Yeah, we are going up against incumbents that have been in the industry for 2 decades. So just to get our word out there by itself is difficult. So that obviously needs money, plain and simple.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit. We sort of touched on this, and Deb, I think you keep reading my mind because you keep sort of answering the next question I'm gonna ask you where I ask it. But I want to talk a little bit about in-house versus outsourcing. So whether that's freelancers or agencies or whatever. Deb, you mentioned the big driver there for you guys is having that subject matter expertise and making sure that everything is like compliant and legal and all that stuff. Are there any other factors that go into making that decision from like a budgetary perspective? Like, hey, should we outsource this or should we try to hire somebody?
Absolutely. 2 things. One, if I hire in-house, I can train them and I can make them an expert, right? It's not hard if you have the right process. If you don't have the right process, it's going to be incredibly difficult. 2, I like to work a little bit more synchronously with my writers as opposed to async. So that helps a lot with in-house. 3, the production, the ROI is much, much higher. So for instance, a freelancer might say, okay, I can give you this article in a week, but I need it in 2 days. I need it because I need it. I need to produce it and I need to send it out. There are like 20 different cascading effects if we don't do it in the next 2 days. What do I do then? I cannot rely on the freelancer, right? So this is my very, very much a personal preference, which is why I prefer in-house folks. And also you do save a lot of money. So this is my operator brain talking, but like from a business's perspective, if you like, there are only 2 things that grows. 2 major things that you want to think about when you're growing a business is you're growing your revenue and you're keeping your costs down, right? So as a responsible head of marketing, I would say that's one of my responsibilities to keep the costs down. And it's not like I don't want to hire freelancers. We do a lot if we do need it, but let's say 80 to 90% of our stuff would be in-house.
Are there specific reasons or use cases for when you will outsource things versus trying to have somebody in-house do it?
Absolutely. So for instance, let's say I need to get something really, really thought, like on the thought leadership front, right? I need unique opinionated pieces, right? In-house, if I do it from in-house, it won't be like opinionated. It will be like biased because it's in-house. So then I go outsource. Then I go from I would find someone in our space who's like an expert, known expert, and then I'll be like, okay, why don't we work together on this particular piece of content?
Okay. George, what about at Wix? I know you mentioned that it sounds like the majority of your sort of written content on a month-to-month basis is handled by outside experts. How do you all, or what have the discussions been like about having that done in-house versus outsourcing it?
There's been 0 discussion about having it done in-house. Thank you.
Oh wow. Okay.
There's like the reason here is would you trust me if I told you, hey, I can teach you everything there is to learn about SEO? No, like how could anyone, right? From the breadth of your coverage, it's about what you're trying to achieve, right? I'm trying to talk to link builders, content marketers, right? C-suite, your juniors, so many different people that there's no way you could just trust me to understand all the angles, or any 3 people or 4 people on my staff. So another part of it is also being in touch with the communities. And for me personally, the Wix SEO Learning Hub, I consider it to be the most diverse publication in the SEO industry. There's not many editors in chief that are people of color, and it's extremely important to me. And to be able to tap into that, wherever that is in the world, right? To leverage that expertise and to get in with those communities like the Freelancer Coalition of Developing Countries, right? If you can identify somebody who has something unique to say, give them a platform, they will be your brand ambassador. They will refer their best colleagues to you. And that helps keep things going. It helps you reach new audiences. And so it's all part of our goals here. To do it all internally would mean to forego all of that and essentially increase your budget in a different way, because how do you get more exposure if your reach is so limited organically? Paid, right? So I figure that this is the most cost-efficient option. On the other side of that, like I said, you're paying for the editor, right? I am not an efficient worker if you're looking for cadence, because of how deeply I have to work on these things. And they balloon up to like crazy massive lengths that I hadn't anticipated. But as I keep reading, I'm like, oh, this is really good. I see you really poured. It's no longer about writing for me. It's about writing for your reputation. And I love that, right? That's the space you want to be in. And that's the formula we've sort of figured out that is working for us at the moment here at Wix. To go in the opposite direction, I totally see the validity of Deb's decision. And if I was in his spot and I needed compliance, I would exactly do that same thing, right? Just goes to show you how different we can be here.
Yeah, for sure. And Ali, I think you all also have a bit of a mix of in-house and outsource writing, and what sort of goes into those decisions about what to in-house, what to outsource.
Yeah, I love hearing how everybody else is doing it. There's an element of like personal preference. There's an element of how the like company preference overall, like does the company lean towards in-house or outsourcing? And there's an element of, what people do you have available on your team and what budgets do you have? And so there's absolutely no one size fits all here. I like to have the people who are responsible for driving a lot of the strategy and the content planning in-house. That's my preference. I've oriented my teams in the past so that the content specialists have some ownership over a particular area. Maybe they own an audience, or maybe they own a solution area of products. And so they are partnered up with product marketing, and they're not only writing for that area, but they're also responsible to do some of the research around that, to brainstorm topics, to understand the SEO opportunities. And that would be, I would prefer to keep that in-house than to outsource it. We do, similar to George, use probably the majority of our freelance dollars go to work with experts, where we feel like we can elevate our topical authority if we are, for example, like we're really heavy with Jira, the Jira product in Atlassian. And so we will work with a Jira expert who's known in the community to bring that extra credibility for our content. But a lot of it is a learning curve for sure, because you do have to, like, if you have those people in-house, and especially if you're in a more technical industry, you need your writers to get to a level where they can actually talk authoritatively about something that they are not actually experts in. And it can be done, but it is a lot of work. But I think it's an investment that's worthwhile. And then we lean into our agency support, work with this agency called Optimist. Probably no one's ever heard of them. For particularly like SEO support, that's where we need a lot of extra, because those skills are not as developed on our team. So helping us really develop our SEO topic strategy, our reporting, and then supplementing with content support. Yeah, it's a mix for us.
I'd say that part of the budget that's really non-negotiable in terms of where it's spent is strategically. Like you could hire an agency for sure, right? If you don't have the staff, but like your writers aren't going to be invested in your success the same way an agency is, or your internal people. And that does affect where you spend your money.
Say more about that.
I have solicitations to write for the Wix SEO Learning Hub, right? But then when you sometimes the poor quality ones, by the way, we don't take like just random pitches. That's not how my publication works. But they'll be very self-serving, right? People who want to go after you are looking for something. Is that exposure? Is that a backlink? Right? You can't just rely on your expert to just go wild unless you're working on a blank slate and there's nothing else on your publication, in which case, yeah, you kind of have nowhere to go but up. But the success of your publication needs to match your business goals, or whatever your content marketing is needs to match your business goals. The people creating that probably are 6 degrees removed from your C-suite or your customer. So success for you is totally different than success for them. Success for them might be building their profile, might be associating themselves with you, might be just writing more or getting paid. It could just be getting paid, right? So you got to pick them well. They have to be invested in your success, but also like strategy is something that you should keep close to your heart because it's your success, right? And you can achieve success together, but if you don't express that intention, then it's not going to happen.
Totally.
I think that's so important, right? Like somebody has to make sure that the content that's being created is aligned with that strategy, and that person has to also be a lot, have some sort of incentive or alignment with those goals, as you mentioned, George. So I think that's a great call out.
Yeah, for an agency, it's the retainer, right? For your people in house, it's I want to keep getting paid, right? Like, yeah.
Yep.
True.
Great. So a couple other questions that I want to go through for today. And by the way, folks, I totally forgot to mention this, but if you are joining us on the live stream and you have any specific questions that you want us to discuss, feel free to pop those into the chat and we will get to them if we have time. Okay, so the next question I was going to ask is just like, when you're having discussions, internally, whether it's, quarterly or yearly or however often, about sort of the size of the overall budget or how much we're going to spend on content, what are some of the factors that are going into, should we be expanding or should we be, spending less or maintaining our current spend? I'd love to kind of hear about that. And maybe Deb, you can start.
Yeah, great question. And I was thinking about this before for the call also. So expanding definitely is on the plate because, like I said, we are just a year old and we definitely want to expand. We are going up against incumbents that are 2 decades old. They have huge authority, like, I don't know, thousands of snippets they own. So expansion is never a question of whether, if, but it's definitely when. And we are expanding. So, and when I say expanding, I'm saying, like even for a small organization like us, we are going to publish like 20, 30 articles a month, right? Because that's the kind of field we are, or rather in the arena we are playing in, if you will. So definitely expansion. Right now we have 1 writer. We are going to hire a couple more folks. Maybe in the future we might even expand to like more freelance writers as well, just to sustain the number of articles that we want to publish. So yeah, like I'm not sure if that answers your question, but if you have, if you have anything specific on that, I might be able to answer it better.
Well, what I'm hearing there is that one of the main factors is sort of looking at the landscape and where are we versus our competitors and how much sort of catching up do we have to do?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like there. I mean, if I could, I would just publish 1,000 pieces today. If I could, if I had some magic that, like, not AI, but human magic that could do it. But that's not physically possible. So.
Sure. As like a fairly early stage company, as sort of a startup, like what's on sort of the other side of that equation? Like what what is sort of the upper bound about how much can we invest in content, and what sort of keeps your budget within a range?
Right. Yeah. So that's a very good question. Budget is not obviously like unending. There's obviously a limit. So yeah, like I said, once we hire the number of writers, like 2-3 writers in house, I would say we would probably stop at that, right, and then see how we can maximize the productivity of theirs, right? So if at 2 to 3 writers we are not publishing 30 pieces to 40 pieces every month, then I know something's wrong, because again, you have to understand the kind of content we are also publishing, right? So if it's like a thought leadership where you need like expert opinions and you need to interview like 10 different folks just to write that one article, that'll take a couple of weeks at least. But the kind of content we are publishing is more of a patent type content, and that doesn't take that much time. If you already have done the research and it lives in a spreadsheet, you just, it's basically templates. So yeah, again, depends on the kind of content. If my writers hit maximum capacity at that, and then on top of that, if we need to publish more opinionated pieces or very expert focused pieces, then we definitely have to expand beyond that. But that's a conversation for the future, obviously. Yeah.
So it sounds like when you're discussing the budget internally or setting the budget, you're generally sort of starting at the output and kind of just working backwards from there to say, okay, if we want to hit these production goals, then we're going to need this many people, and they're going to need to work this efficiently, and that's sort of how you then, okay.
Just one more point on that. So like we also evaluate every quarter. So in next quarter, if we see that publishing X number of articles isn't giving us the kind of output that we expected, then again we reevaluate and say, okay, this is maybe we need to expand budget, contract budget, so on and so forth.
Are you, like, when you say quarterly like output, are you reviewing like organic
traffic
performance or leads?
Yeah,
or
organic performance.
A holistic
organic performance leads.
Because it feels like
holistically. So
yeah, like quarterly seems very frequently. Like that's an in-depth analysis, and I think that would take time, right?
Yeah, early stage kind of have to do that.
And once again, Deb read my mind, because that was my next question, was how frequently are you making these assessments and sort of adjusting that stuff? So it sounds like, Deb, you're saying quarterly is what you guys are doing, which I think makes sense, especially for an earlier stage company. You're moving faster, things are changing probably more rapidly, I would assume. And George, it sounds like quarterly would maybe be too frequent for a company like Wix.
For my purposes, the Wix SEO Learning Hub is essentially a brand publication without the scrutiny of being a lead generation. That's why we don't have CTAs in it. We don't have ads of any sort. It's for education. It's because it's also kind of like when I was hired, I was promised something that I would have an outlet to educate, and to keep that intact has been extremely important. And to appear on webinars in which I explicitly say that adds pressure to continue to keep this the way it is, because it's a good thing, right? And Deb, Ali, you know it too. You got political levers you have to pull to make sure what you're doing continues to work, right? This is one of those things. I would say that I actually ended up using less budget than I requested because work-life balance for me personally. My superiors were unhappy with how I was not like rising up, or maybe like I just gave off a level of stress, I think, and they said, hey, let's take this down a notch, George. And so like we've scaled it back a little bit, but then there are special projects, and because our goals have increased, like really you do have to just look at what your goals are. You can't let like where you want to be dictate all your spending, because you're going to run in the red every single quarter. But if we want to show professionals, that's part of the perception issue that we had previously and that we're still trying to build on. Are we good for people who need businesses that need thousands of pages, right? How can we do, what if you want to do something programmatically, right? So there are special projects that we will hire special contributors for, give them a budget. It'll include like video content. It'll include actual code sometimes, and a case study maybe, right? So we do rise up to that occasion when we have the goal, we want to show the audience like what you thought about Wix was wrong. We are very willing to spend to get in front of the audience we want to get in front of. But that doesn't always manifest in written content on the hub. It's in a lot of places. And I would say that it depends on if you consider the in-person experience as content marketing, because we did a road show for Wix Studio in which we did educational stops with website owners and partners all over the world. And that I have no idea how much it costs. Like 5 people sent around the world and stuff, like many teams sent to do it. So I'm assuming it would have been a small margin. But yeah, like
sounds like it didn't come out of your budget. So
no, I wouldn't exist anymore. Like we'd be gone. Like, but thankfully, you know, what we're doing is working. And so you have to make sure if you get a slice of budget, it hurts when it gets cut back so badly. But you have to position yourself in a way where this is a non-negotiable. Everything that we do in terms of marketing eventually for SEO and Wix points back to the Wix SEO Learning Hub as the destination for signups on webinars and so on and so forth, right? Our authors have profiles. It is a hub. And to think that it might be gone that would be like the entire initiative being gone. Years wasted, right? And so becoming synonymous with the brand is the mission to ensure longevity for your budget, I feel.
Wow, that's yeah, I think that's super helpful. And I think that if I can maybe put a point on that, it sounds like part of that discussion, you know, as you said, it's not necessarily about, you know, how many leads are we driving or how much revenue are we driving. It's really about, you know, sort of the brand value that's being created, and that is sort of what's dictating or driving, you know, any question about that investment.
Yeah, and the goal here is simply to turn around the reputation when it was first started, right?
Yeah,
I would say that we've done that. But now it's going that step further, not just turning it around, but advancing the reputation. So this is the new goal, right? And so you just find a new goal.
Fascinating. All right, Ali. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the factors or discussions that are happening inside AppFire when you're thinking about, you know, that budget versus previous budgets and, you know, expanding, contracting the
I think
allocation?
It's pretty similar to a lot of the stuff that George brought up in terms of our organization, and we're looking at it on an annual basis. And because of the size of our org, content's goals are totally related to the goals of the marketing team as a whole. So we have to look at our demand generation goals and our product marketing goals, our corporate comms goals, what we want to be known for as a company, and then we will have some special projects and content initiatives within that where we might have our own goals or be requesting our own pot of money. But for the most part, it's really tied to SEO sits with our demand generation team. So it's all tied in with what those overall goals are. It's not so much like these are the content goals and this is what we're doing. Our goals are in support of the overall marketing objectives. So we kind of look at the budget holistically in that way. But then there are absolutely things where I'm like, no, I, in this area, want to advance a particular content marketing driven strategy, and I'm going to ask for some budget or investment there. We are not where we want to be yet in terms of reporting. So lots of room to grow. In an ideal world, we have that data. We're looking back and seeing what really performed well, what didn't, where we want to pull more levers. We're not there yet. So we'll get there.
You said something interesting there, Ali, about the SEO budget being within demand generation. Does that mean that you're also working heavily with those teams?
Yes. So small SEO team and some agency support. But yes, to the point that we joked that our SEO team is basically part of the content team because we are like completely in lockstep with each other. But yes, technically SEO.
That has to be praised. Like no matter whatever the size is, to be in lockstep means no siloing. No siloing means efficient budget. So for example, we had these multiple publications. Before there was the e-commerce publication that eventually got rolled into the main blog, but there was the main e-commerce and Wix SEO. And I could publish something on maybe redirects, right? Big head term, like 301 redirects, right? And then find out later on that the main blog actually has something targeting that keyword. We both exist on the same domain. But theirs is for lead generation and mine's is for education. And now only one of them ranks, right? Like this is just an example. It might be a real example because this has happened, but that siloing means you are working against yourself. If organic is a thing for you, if you're just writing to like, I want a wealth of knowledge on my website, go at it, right? But if you're looking for organic performance, siloing will cost you budget and time, and your superiors will be like, this is what we hired you for, right? So in my case, I saw that and I said, me and the other editor said, this can no longer be the case. So we now have a roundtable in which like, hey, this is your lane, this is my lane. And when we step out, we make sure it's good with everyone before we approve ideas and move forward. that is how you can, like, that's a good way to make the best of your budget. And also be like, hey, the company operated this way before, now it operates this way. I'd like a raise.
There you go. Hey,
I'm all for everyone getting paid as much as you can possibly get paid. Everyone, from freelancers, everyone here, everyone listening.
Here. Yes.
I'll bring your win.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say we're just a minute over here, so we'll wrap things up. But Ali, George, Deb, thank you so much. This has been a really great conversation. Just a lot of insights about so many different strategies and approaches, and just all the different thinking that goes into something as complex as setting a budget. So again, thank you all so much for taking the time to join us. Thank you to everyone who joined us on the live stream today. Once again, shout out to Top of the Funnel if you've not already joined, yesoptimist.com/tofu. All right, that's going to be all for today. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thanks, folks. Cheers.